Welcome to the show. It's a Friday. We're going to talk some NASCAR with Rod Mullins. And Rod, let's start. We'll recap last week and the win for what Chase Elliott,
Hmm.
the son of Wild Bill from Dawsonville, gets the win and sort of in his backyard there, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a while for him. Big win for him to pull down last week.
44 races, I think, is what it had been altogether. It doesn't seem like that long, but it was. But yeah, it had taken a while, and there'd been a lot of, I guess, complaints. There'd been a lot of arguments, a lot of different things along the line of where they had been talking, fans had been talking that they did not think that this matchup between Chase Elliott and also his crew chief was beneficial. They thought, hey, it's time. I think we need a new crew chief. Some were even talking about, hey, maybe Chase Elliott needs to go somewhere else or go into a different car. I don't think that was the problem at all. I think it was just a matter of Chase Elliott getting his feet back under him and going through a different season unlike what he's gone through before. I think he's gone through some really good seasons where he showed that he was able to do what he needed to do in the car. But he's not been the same ever since he broke that leg. He broke his leg in that skiing accident. And I don't know if it's just something that he is still trying to get accustomed to. I don't know if he's a little bit cringe. He may cringe in certain situations about stuff. I mean, I would probably cringe about wrecks and certain things, about re-injuring myself. And we don't know to what extent, what kind of pain and what kind of things he went through with that broken leg when he was on the ski slope. But I tend to think maybe he's a little gun shy at some of these things. Maybe he's worried about an injury and he's trying to protect himself a little bit. I don't know, but drivers get this little thing about them every so often, and I think Dale Earnhardt got it too. I think Dale Earnhardt at one point. Everybody thought Dale Earnhardt was washed up. He had a wreck, and I think he had several cracked ribs. Ended up, coming back in the next few weeks, and people said this isn't the same Earnhardt. And I think it affects you. I think it affects different drivers in different ways. But what a win, especially there near the home track. He's from Dawsonville, and the old siren there at the Dawsonville Pool Hall had been quiet for 44 races, and they got to fire that thing back up in the middle of the night. And so there were a lot of happy people, I'm sure, around Dawsonville, which is located about northeast of Atlanta. So they call pretty much Atlanta their home, or at least part of their home base and everything. But it was good to see him back in the winner's circle for one time in 44 races.
And kind of dramatic too.
Yeah.
The last lap pass of Brad Keselowski, and then also close by was Alex Bowman. Watching those last few laps, I mean, he had to make up some ground there to even have a chance to pass in the last lap. Good racing there at the end.
Yeah, and this has developed into a race that a lot of the drivers are referring to it now as a super speedway. They think it is a super speedway in the sense of being able to kind of move around together, the way you're able to make moves and so forth. There's some that just absolutely don't like it whatsoever because of the way that the configuration was changed. And we had that 22 car pileup there in the race too. And when that happened, a lot of notables at that point, Joey Logano being one, and several others, Denny Hamlin, they all went by the wayside with this. And Brad Keselowski, he's liked Atlanta. He has raced Atlanta really well in the past, and I kind of thought he had this one in the bag. But Chase Elliott dug down a little bit deeper and was able to pull this off. And I have to really give credit and kudos to Alex Bowman, because we're in again another situation of where we're coming down to Chicago. We're coming down to the series of races right before the playoff cutoff point. And Alex Bowman is trying to get back into playoff contention, or at least he's trying to be in playoff contention. And, what happened last year when he went to Chicago? I mean, everybody had pretty much wrote him off the books. They said, hey, I don't think Bowman's got a chance at this. Van Gisbergen or somebody else, let's put them into it. And Alex Bowman walked away with the race at Chicago. So are we seeing something that could be materializing into another race like it was last year? I don't know. But Alex Bowman's kind of racing for his, I want to say his racing professional life is what he's wanting to do right now to prove to people he is still relevant in this racing game, which he has been all along. It's just it's a matter of what you're dealt with every week, week in and week out. It's, either a part breaks, which sometimes it happens, the car breaks, the car gets caught up in a wreck, or, you either have those days where you have speed or you don't. It's all a part of racing.
The line of the night after the race, I won't give it. I'll let you give it. It was Ty Dillon. The in-season challenge just started the last week,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he was a 32nd seed, and because I mean the way things work out, Denny Hamlin had some issues with those wrecks, and he was upset by Ty Dillon. So the line of the night, tell us what that was.
Well, I have to say, this in season challenge, I think if anybody was doing this thing like the 64 team or 65 team field in NCAA basketball, your bracket was busted almost immediately after this race. But Ty Dillon, he did end up beating out Denny Hamlin. And the quote of the night was, "For all you Denny fans out there, I just beat your favorite driver."
That's nice. You got to
Yeah.
use it. I mean, that's the wrestling promo inside you there to to get that line out. But yeah, there were some upsets just because of you mentioned the 22 car crash. There was a 7 car
Mhm.
crash earlier in the race, and so jostling guys around a little bit there. But fun stuff there, and that'll continue obviously in Chicago this weekend too.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely be on in Chicago this week. There'll be those tight streets and everything there through Grant Park and everything. It's definitely going to be a very tight race this coming weekend at Chicago.
So we'll talk more about that in a second, but first there's some off the track news, and it involves Daniel Suarez. Maybe not surprising to people who've been following, but still it's confirmed now.
Yeah, it's confirmed now. He's mired in 29th place in the NASCAR standings, and he has not had a good season. Last year, I think at one point he was right down into the playoffs. He was, right into everything. This year has not been as good. But he's not leaving in any kind of bitter way. He's looking forward to what he feels like is going to be a change. Now, what that tells us, I don't really know what's going on. There's been a lot of change at Trackhouse over the last several months. Ross Chastain, not as powerful on the track as he has been. Suarez, not as dominant as he has been at different times. It just was a tale of the tapes, so to speak, of the way things had gone. And so with all that happening, they mutually agreed that he would not be coming back for next year, and he had only signed an extension for 2025 that would take him through to the 26th season. And so Justin Marks and company, kind of at this juncture right now, where they're kind of taking a step back. Suarez is going to take a step back and see what could be offered out there before all is said and done. And I kind of expect him to be in maybe in an upper tier sort of car. I don't know how that's going to go just yet. There's a lot of question marks. What's going to happen? There's even talk that if this 2311 thing gets solved, that there may be expansion over on the 2311 side. There may be the possibility of expansion over to, of all places, Legacy Motorsports, because Legacy Motorsports is also rumored that they would like to go to a third team. And the talk is right now, and this is kind of scuttlebutt that's dancing around, Legacy hasn't been too happy with the Toyotas this year, and they get a lot of the information from Joe Gibbs Racing, from Toyota Gazoo Racing, and that oversees all this, and they've not exactly been happy. And from what I understand, they've been receiving, let's put it this way, they've been receiving overtones from Dodge, for example, maybe Dodge rejoining Legacy Motor Club, which would be just perfect, because who have you got there? You got Richard Petty. Richard Petty, made things famous while he was driving for the Dodge and the Plymouths and so forth. So it might be a jump for Daniel Suarez to be able to go to that team. There's a lot of things that's going to remain open right now. I think we're not going to get a lot of scuttlebutt here until probably right around probably about the late August, probably about the time when we start hitting the playoffs and we get ready to go into the playoffs. We'll see some more changes, but then we won't see who's being plugged into place until that happens, and then we'll start seeing, oh, so and so's going to this team, and so and so's going, to this team. And there's been a lot of rumors too that some of the race teams aren't happy with some of their drivers right now. There was talk that Josh Berry might not be with the Wood brothers, and they said that that's the farthest thing from the truth. He's won a race already for them this year, but and he's raced good. He was racing good in the Atlanta race the other night before all the calamities and everything took place. So there's a lot of different places that Suarez could end up before the season is over with, and we might see him. Who knows? He might just drop back down to Xfinity for a little while, drive until something materializes for him. We'll just have to wait and see.
I love it when a departure like that is announced as mutually agreed. Hey,
Yeah.
Daniel, we're not going to bring you back next year. You have any problem with that? Well, I guess you're not going to bring me back. I'll agree. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that's the mutual agreement.
yeah, it's kind of weird, and I hate those press releases the way that they're worded and everything. Mutually agreed upon. When it comes the time for a coach to end his tenure there because they are 0 and 133, we mutually agreed to part, and it's like there's nothing mutually to agree upon. The guy can't coach at 0 and 133. Get him out of there and get somebody else in there. I can't really say that toward Daniel Suarez, but Daniel Suarez is the eternal optimist because one of his quotes that he said, I wish Trackhouse nothing but the best, but he says, this 99 team will always be special to him, but more than anything else, he says, like I always say, the best is ahead. So at least he's got an optimistic look about things, and he may know something that the rest of us don't know at this point. It's just a matter of if and when.
When the University of Virginia fired Al Groves as football coach, the press release that came out about it said he was not being retained as the football coach.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a way to put it.
That's one way of putting it too. I mean, I just, some of these press releases, and I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit biased about this, but sometimes even the people we think are the most professional and how they handle this thing don't word things in the right way, and I'm guilty for that. I've done some things that before writing some news stories that maybe I didn't word it exactly in the right way, but still, not being retained. Well, we know that. I mean, just say you fired him. Just come right out and say you fired. Oh, you're just trying to cushion the fall a little bit more. It's what they're trying to do. So.
I mean, show him being like escorted out of the building with his hands behind his back. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Chicago, we have a defending race winner. You mentioned Alex Bowman, but we also have a guy in Shane Van Gisbergen who won his last time out here, if I remember correctly.
Right. Yep.
So, and Shane Van Gisbergen has won this year on the circuit, and he will be in the playoffs. I got to think that's going to be a fun race for him. He would love to probably, of course, get this win, not only to get the win, but also to maybe shut up Richard Petty as far as that kind of thing goes. Preview
Yep.
for us. Yeah, you already started doing this, but preview for us, Chicago.
Well, the Grant Park 165 will be on Sunday. The Xfinity race will be on Saturday, but this race starts at about 2 o'clock. We're hoping that it doesn't rain. For two
Yeah,
straight years,
yeah,
it has rained. And I'm hoping it doesn't rain and they get a little bit of a different kind of
yeah.
condition as to running this race. But as for who's expected in this race, of course, we've mentioned Shane Van Gisbergen. He's got to be considered a front runner. Alex Bowman, who won the race last year. But there's an even deeper story here. I mentioned Alex Bowman at the beginning of the podcast, kind of fighting for his playoff life, so to speak. Well, as of right now, it is Alex Bowman and Bubba Wallace are the two drivers directly above the current elimination line for the Cup playoffs. So now you play that in. Bubba has been having some bad luck here as of late. And Bowman is 39 points to the good. Wallace is 23 points above the cutoff. So that means this race could be very pivotal for both of these drivers. If they have a bad start to this race, this could knock them out almost completely and they'd have to fight or win to get back into the playoffs. And, the rumor has started too. They said, what if we have 17 different winners this year? Somebody could get knocked out. If we have somebody else, a 17th winner, somebody could get knocked out of this whole thing. You're right. Somebody could. And it's also letting us look at this playoff picture a little bit more, I think, in a little bit more tighter terms than what it's always been. Is it going to be up and up a fair way to go? I'll just look at it this way. This in-season challenge, they're hoping that this is going to be a little bit more excitement for this race coming up. I don't know. I don't recall a lot of people really paying that much attention to it last week when it was in Atlanta, except when they started talking about it at the end, and Ty Dillon got his famous one-liner off on Denny Hamlin. But I'm wondering if this is going to be a regular thing. This was just something incited to just put into the playoffs a little bit, or pre-playoffs, to kind of generate some excitement. I don't know. But I will say this. I think there's one driver that everybody needs to make note of coming up this weekend, and that's Eric Jones. Eric Jones has made some huge jumps in the playoff picture, and where he's standing at right now. I had that number up here just a second ago, and if I find it, I'll read it back to you. But Eric Jones, here it is. This is the situation. Eric Jones triumphs if he does at Chicago. Great, he's in the playoffs. But if he were to triumph at, say, Daytona, where he's won at before, it puts a lot of these playoff drivers on the bubble. And when I say puts these playoff drivers on the bubble, Bowman, Wallace, some of the others, Busch in there included. Busch did not have a good race this past Saturday night in Atlanta. So he had been able to gain some points, but now we're looking at the point of, you've got this bubble, maybe about 4 or 5 drivers there, either above or near the cutoff point, that could be affected by a win from one of these drivers who comes out of nowhere, but has been so strongly consistent in points and also finishing order in some of the races. It remains to be seen what could happen. So there could be a lot of things that could happen this coming Sunday with the race at Chicago. And yes, even going into some of the other races. We still haven't ran Sonoma yet. They've got to go to wine country in California and run at Sonoma. Then, of course, they'll run at Daytona there toward the regular part of the season. So a lot of things between now and then could determine who this 16 or 17. I think NASCAR ought to go with maybe a 17-car field. They ought to have a wild card in this. I really think they ought to put a wild card driver into this and kind of reward that wild card, that driver for performance and what they've been doing through the season. And I think Eric Jones would probably be my wild card pick if he didn't win any races here on out, but he maintained his points and was able to get up there. I believe he ought to be your wild card. Throw him into the mix and see what they could give. But that could be debated. I'm sure it could be, but they'll either go with 16 teams this year, or we may see somebody tied and they'll go with the tiebreaker on it to put somebody of the 16 teams into the playoffs.
An idea, it just really popped in my head literally just in the last couple seconds. Kind of use what the NBA has done the last 2 or 3 years with its playoffs, where, like in the East, each of the conferences traditionally for many years, 8 teams would get in. Well, the last couple of years, you've had 10 teams get in, but the bottom 4 have to kind of play their way into the 8-team field. So maybe do something where, all right, we could have as many as 24 guys make it, but the first race of the playoffs. So numbers 13 through 24, only 4 of you survive.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Make that a one and done kind of situation. That would put some stakes on that. I mean, okay, you got in, but you better do well this weekend. So, that could be some fun. I just looked up the weather for Chicago, and there is a chance of showers. 35 to 40%. I looked at 2 apps. I didn't want to just go with one. I wanted a second opinion. So 35 to 40% chance, and it looks like, so you said the race starts at 2. That's probably 2 Eastern. So that's 1 Central. Looks like around 4 Central is when it looks like the best chance of rain. So they would probably get the race in if that was the case. And it's and both apps said spot showers. So let's hope, because you're right. The last 2 have been marred by the rain.
Well, hey, look, I mean, it's a perfect opportunity to test that wet weather tire too, to put that, that season tire on there that's got the tread. And I've had a couple of people ask me, why are they even trying to use these tires sometimes at some of these races to see how they're doing? They're doing the same thing that like what we normally do with our tires, except we're out driving with them. They're just trying to test them to see how well they will handle at certain speeds. But, look, you've got a flat tire. You have nothing that has any kind of groove or anything on it when they race on the track, and it's meant mostly for being able to stick. That's mostly what it's being able to do. I mean, you get it heated up, that tire is going to stick to the track a little bit better. It's not, or if it gets a little bit greasy, it's going to slide around. These wet weather tires have got the regular treads through them and everything that evacuates the water, that helps them maintain traction more so with the surface. And so that's probably one plan that they've got in mind. If they get close enough and 4 o'clock and this system moves in, hey, they could elect, if they needed to, on that one of those final pits or near time for the final pits, put on that wet weather tire and go from there with it. And some of them have the option. They can either go with that regular wet weather tire through the race itself. It wears on it pretty bad, but I think I would opt for it there toward the end of it. I would opt in, if I had my chance for a pit stop, pull in, get my wet weather tire, get it on there. If I'm out in the lead, just give it everything she's got till I could pull off the win with this. It'd be a big win, especially in that wet weather tire form.
Makes some strategy. Definitely have to be
Yeah,
watching for that on Sunday. So, well, Rod, as always, thank you for your time, your insight. We look forward to talking to you next week.
appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.